As you probably know, and this is a bit of an understatement, but Immortals Fenyx Rising, Ubisoft's latest third-person open-world adventure, is shaping up to be a lot like Breath of the Wild. But after playing the game for a solid 4 hours, I can say that whatever games Fenyx Rising mimics, I believe it will succeed on its own merits. In fact, it's now one of my most anticipated games of the fall. This world seems tailor-made for gamers who love exploration, who love to solve puzzles, who love a good fight, and who want to lose themselves in an environment that piques their curiosity at every turn. I want to thank Ubisoft for the opportunity, but for now, I hope you'll join me as I look at 15 things I discovered while playing 4 hours of Immortals Fenyx Rising. Fenyx Rising takes place on a fantastical island filled with legendary characters and creatures as well as mythological locations. To match the larger-than-life stories the game tells, Ubisoft has traded realism for a highly stylized aesthetic. But don't let the cartoony look fool you. This world is stunning. I guess you could compare it to Breath of the Wild, but I found it to be more vibrant with features and locations that are more exaggerated and, in my opinion, more intriguing. That's right, at first glance, I found this world to be more inviting than Hyrule. Perhaps it's my fascination with Greek mythology, but even so, take this giant statue. Seeing it from a distance, I knew I had to explore it, and once I got there, it was even larger than I anticipated, and just climbing it was an absolute joy. And when I reached one of the game's many other vistas, it became clear that these types of epic and mysterious locations and landmarks are everywhere. As for the map itself, it's made up of 7 different regions, each themed after a different Greek god. The one I spent the most time exploring was called the Valley of the Eternal Spring, and it was themed after the goddess Aphrodite. As such, it was bright and featured plenty of lush greenery and active wildlife. The other area I explored was themed after, I believe, Hermes, and it was much darker and foreboding. It still featured some color, but all the trees were completely lifeless. Now, each area did feel big, but when you look at the world map and zoom all the way out, it doesn't feel nearly as gigantic as, say, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Plus, being able to glide anywhere a la Breath of the Wild makes getting around not only manageable, but a lot of fun. One final detail about the map is that to reveal each area, you have to find the giant statue of that area's respective god. You then climb atop and scout the region. This is similar to synchronizing areas in Assassin's Creed, but from what I could tell, it did not reveal points of interest. That's left up to the player through one of the game's other, shall we say, Zelda-esque mechanics. Fenyx, the hero of Fenyx Rising, has an ability called FARSIGHT. But make no mistake, this is one ability that's taken straight from Breath of the Wild. You can survey the map to find your next destination. Find one of these small glimmers and you can press a button to reveal a point of interest. From what I saw, these can range from a particular resource that you can harvest, or they might mark one of the game's many world activities. Plus, you can drop custom pins if you want to mark particular locations that you don't want to forget. Even if this mechanic is taken straight from Zelda, I certainly didn't mind. It was during my first look at the world through this sort of binocular vision that I realized just how much this world has to offer. Straight up, this game has a ton of stuff to do. If you've paid attention to previous Fenyx Rising coverage, you might have seen some of these activities, but nonetheless, here's what I discovered. First are myth challenges, which are different types of puzzles, activities, and other challenges scattered liberally across the map. They include constellation puzzles, which are massive and I describe in detail in the next section, fresco challenges, which require you to push these blocks to form a painting, and navigation challenges where you have to race from one point to another in a set amount of time. Another myth challenge that I didn't get to experience but that I've seen highlighted on Ubisoft's official YouTube channel are called Odysseus challenges. These have you firing one of your guided arrows through a course of rings in order to make it to the final target. Plus, I know there are even more types of myth challenges because I saw their icons on my map, but I just didn't have time to explore them. Now, these alone could keep you busy, but you also have Hermes' Heroic Task Board, which provides activities that you can accept and complete to earn rewards. Examples include killing 10 animals or collecting a set number of resources. And then there are vaults. I go over these in detail later, but for now, know that vaults are basically shrines from, you guessed it, Breath of the Wild. If this all sounds like a lot, well, it is, but that's a good thing because I had fun with just about all of it. Whether you're trying to unlock a gate that blocks your path or gain entry to one of the game's many vaults, you'll encounter a lot of environmental puzzles in Fenyx Rising. Just to give you an idea, let's look at the previously mentioned constellation challenges. These sprawling contraptions require that you gather a group of orbs and arrange them in a particular order on an empty grid. Now, that might sound easy, but recovering each orb, usually 5 or 6, also requires that you solve a separate environmental puzzle. These might involve lighting a series of hidden torches, moving rocks onto a series of switches, or simply figuring out how to open a locked gate. And if these examples sound simple, well, I'm not very worried. Of the many puzzles I encountered, they each surprised me with their creativity, and they were just challenging enough that they felt like genuine puzzles as opposed to mere obstacles. And this is just one type of challenge that requires you to use your brain in this way. Sometimes you'll find a room that you have to access, and to do so will require you to investigate your surroundings and just figure things out. Or you'll enter one of the game's many puzzle-laden vaults, which again I talk about later. Furthermore, it seems that different regions will offer different puzzle mechanics. For example, while I didn't see it in this demo, I have seen gameplay where Fenyx explores a region called the Forge Lands, where white-hot lasers allow for new types of environmental head-scratchers. One final note is that the game does have a few puzzle assist options that you can activate via the options menu if you get frustrated. Okay, now that we've looked at some of the reasons I'm super excited to explore this world, let's look at one of my only concerns about Immortals Fenyx Rising. Not to harp on Zelda, but one of the great things about Breath of the Wild, at least for me, is that with all the different things it offered, it rarely felt repetitive. Even with over 100 shrines, they each felt for the most part unique. And when you encountered a challenge out in the world, they often felt unlike anything you had seen before. However, I worry this is one area where Fenyx Rising might falter. That's because many of the world activities, while very creative, are essentially repeats of one another. For example, just how many fresco challenges will there be, and will they be different? Or how many constellation orbs can we retrieve before the experience feels stale? Now, I know littering a world with set types of activities is a common open world trope, and it's not a bad thing on its face. I'd much rather have a lot of fun stuff to do than an empty world, but I do wonder if this game will maintain the magic that I experienced in the demo for 30 or 40 hours. Based on everything I've said thus far, I'm very optimistic, if cautiously so. Okay, so yeah, here's another Breath of the Wild comparison, but the element of Fenyx Rising that's perhaps the most like Nintendo's classic are the Vaults of Tartaros, which, as I've mentioned, are just like the shrines in Hyrule. It seems like just entering a vault will often require solving a puzzle, and once you jump in, you'll enter a celestial realm filled with floating platforms, enemies to battle, and more puzzles to solve. The first thing you'll see are these 3 icons, which represent the vault's difficulty level. The 3 or 4 vaults that I entered were ranked as easy, but they still offered some creatively designed challenges. Vaults also feature hidden chests, and you have to find all of them if you hope to 100% each vault. Once you make your exit, you'll know if you found everything because only then will the vault's entrance be sealed off for good. Finally, once you complete the core challenge within a vault, regardless of whether you find the hidden chests, you'll be rewarded with one of Zeus's lightning bolts, which can be used to upgrade your stamina. And speaking of stamina, when it comes to both exploring and fighting in Fenyx Rising, stamina affects almost every aspect of gameplay. Let's start with exploring. Climbing, gliding, and swimming all deplete Fenyx's physical energy, as noted by these blue pips. This makes climbing in particular very engaging because high cliffs and mountainsides become a navigation challenge. As for gliding, the more stamina you have, the farther you can soar, and when it comes to swimming, the game does feature a lot of water, and you might encounter, say, a submerged treasure chest that you can't reach until you upgrade your stamina. Even some basic skills like sprinting and double jumping require stamina, so if you're about to attempt, say, one of the game's navigation challenges, you want to make sure your blue bars are fully stocked. So what about catching your breath? Well, you can replenish a very small amount of stamina by consuming these blue mushrooms, or you can refill a larger amount by consuming a blue potion. You can craft these back at your home base, which I'll talk about shortly. As for combat, Fenyx's godly powers such as Ares' Wrath will deplete your stamina, but you can also replenish some by landing attacks. And that brings me to my next point. You may already know this, but Fenyx Rising is being developed by the same team behind Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and it shows in the combat. For example, parrying is executed by pressing 2 shoulder buttons simultaneously, just like in Odyssey. Also, if you dodge at just the right time, you'll temporarily slow down time. And similar to how things work in the upcoming Assassin's Creed Valhalla, each enemy has a stamina meter which you can fill by performing parries and landing heavy attacks with your axe. When an enemy's stamina meter is full, they become stunned, allowing you to land a barrage of unblockable attacks. But many of the encounters in Fenyx Rising, even with some common enemies, felt much more challenging than in Assassin's Creed, at least during my 4 hours with the game. Part of that is due to the mythical nature of the world. Enemies can be much more varied and they can wield mythical powers. For example, the game has flying enemies. I also encountered at least one proper boss in the form of this Cyclops. And then there was this guy who wasn't a full-on boss, but felt like one because he had this impenetrable shield, which I could only disable by defeating the foot soldiers he would constantly summon to fight by his side. Making things easier are your godly powers, which I touched on in the previous segment. Some of the ones I unlocked included Heracles' Strength, seen here, Hephaestus' Hammer, and Ares' Wrath. And by the way, these powers, not to mention the many skills you'll learn, well, they're all fully upgradable. So let's talk about the game's upgrade system. One location in the game that we knew of before, but that we got to explore for the first time in this demo, is the Hall of Gods. It's a small temple that more or less acts as your hub or home base, and it's here that you'll return to from your journey, typically via fast travel, to upgrade, well, just about anything. You can spend a resource called adamantine shards to upgrade your weapons and armor, or you can upgrade new skills and abilities by spending coins of Charon, a currency obtained by completing myth challenges. And by the way, speaking of skills and abilities, here's a look at the game's 2 skill trees. This one is for basic skills such as your stealth kill ability and your double jump. And the other, this one here, is for your godly powers. Upgrading both will increase your prowess in combat and the efficiency with which you can explore the world and solve puzzles. Moving on, you can also spend other specific resources to upgrade Fenyx's health, stamina, and potions. It's also at the Hall of Gods that you'll find Hermes' heroic task board that I mentioned earlier. Basically, there's just a lot of stuff to do here. So I mentioned that you can upgrade your potions, but I found potions to be so essential that I wanted to devote an entire section just to them. First off, you have 4 different types. There are health and stamina potions, which are self-explanatory, and then there are attack potions, which are purple, and defense potions, which are yellow. These enhance your attack and defense stats respectively for a short time, but in different ways depending on how you upgrade them. Now, upgrading your health and stamina potions just adds to the number of pips each potion will recover, but your attack and defense potions have much broader upgrade trees with a ton of options. You can increase your defense potion's ability to boost your overall defense stat, or you can upgrade your attack potions to boost your ability to stun foes. Being able to customize attack and defense potions should allow you to tailor the combat experience more to your liking. And while we're talking about tailoring, there's one last thing in Fenyx Rising that you can customize. The very first thing I did in the demo, and what I believe will be the very first thing you'll do when you start the game, is customize your look. Now, bear in mind that this isn't a very deep character creator, but it does let you make some nice choices. First off, the game's gender options are not totally binary. You do choose a male or female body, but you can put a beard on a female character or a female voice on a male character. Second, this being a mythological story, you can choose certain mythological looks, like for example, green skin. I went with a female with dark skin, silver hair, green eyes, and this cool face tattoo. In my time with Fenyx Rising, I tamed an elk-like creature that became my mount. I was told that you can also recruit a unicorn, and I've seen a mechanical horse in other gameplay videos. To acquire a mount, you simply have to sneak up on an animal, and when you get close enough, press a button to tame it. From there, you can not only ride your mount anywhere, but the game features several cool riding mechanics. First, you can hop off your mount while sprinting to give Fenyx a nice boost if you want to leap into the air. Second, as you approach the ground out of a glide, you can hop right onto your mount before you even touch the ground. Both these features are subtle, but they definitely make for more seamless traversal. Stealth is a part of this game, but I didn't really get to experiment much with it. There is a crouch button which allows you to sneak quietly, and if you crouch while in tall grass, you become all but invisible. You can also sneak up on enemies, and if they don't detect you, you can then perform a stealth attack, dealing more damage. But I didn't get to see how stealth plays out any further. Will you get to sneak through enemy encampments? Will any missions or puzzles actually require stealth? Maybe other content creators got to explore this more, but if not, we'll just have to wait and see. The last thing I want to mention about Fenyx Rising is that this game does not take itself seriously, like at all. In the prior demo that was shown off back in September, the game's narrator even introduced the game point blank as, quote, the game formerly known as Gods and Monsters. In other words, the writing is totally self-aware, and while not necessarily gut-bustingly hilarious, it is at times genuinely funny. We so rarely see games that get humor right, and while I anticipate some jokes in Fenyx Rising might fall flat, my time with the demo reassured me that the humor will, at least on occasion, be pretty great. So there you have it. I hope you found this video informative and maybe even fun to watch. If you want more preview-related content, but on a weekly basis, check out the podcast called Preloaded, which I produce with fellow YouTuber JV, and which I've just started posting to my channel. Every week, we talk news, opinions, and we give our hands-on impressions for some of the biggest and most exciting upcoming video games. And with that, I want to thank you for watching this entire video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to drop a like and share it with friends. If you want to keep up with me and see what I'm playing, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at QuestModeGames. Until next time, I want to remind everyone to never stop questing.